The blue dot polls gives the Labour Party a 4-point lead in voter support. That, when you extrapolate it, is a voting share of 52% to 48%. If we use a simple seat allocation model, we can estimate the seat count. Calera, tell me if you're hearing me. TA 45, hello. Tell me if you're hearing me. Let me go again. Because it's about science and it's about statistic, not fluff. Those people, PNP youth, hello. Those people who you see come up and give wild guesses, dismiss those. Use the information from the scientists. Let's start with blue dot. 4 points, they say. 4-point lead. Now, there are other polls, both internal JLP polls as well as internal PNP polls. You have to give me some time. I'm trying to help one of my listeners, Calera. Calera, I've sent you a message. Please respond to it. All right? With a 4-point lead, and I could do it 5 points, 6 points, 7 points for you. And I could go further down to give you the idea. When you see the polls, how you crunch the numbers. So at 4 points, that's a 52% voter percentage share for the Labour Party and 48% for the PNP. Now, remember, there are 63 seats. So if we use a simple seat allocation model, the Labour Party, based on blue dot, wins between 35 and 40 seats. 40 is the Politics Plus projection forecast. The PNP, based on blue dot, wins between 23 and 28 with a 48% vote share. Is that clear, Calera? Is that clear, listeners? That's the seat allocation simplified, extrapolating blue dot. Let's go to the second poll, which is Mr. Don Anderson. Based on the Anderson polls, he gives the PNP 3 points lead. That, assuming a 3-point lead, gives the PNP a 51.5% share of the voter support. But I could analyze this further, but I don't have the time to do it because there are other factors that you have to put in it. And it gives the Labour Party 48.5%. Let me be clear that you can win the majority of votes and lose the election. because of the seat counts. It is constituency by constituency. And therefore, if some constituencies vote in large numbers, you are going to win the popular vote. You can win the popular vote and lose the election. But Don Anderson gives the PNP 51.5 to the Labour Party 48.5. If we use the same seat allocation model as we used for Blue Dot, the estimated PNP seat count is 34 to 39, and the Labour Party 24 to 29. Now, these projections are rough estimates and may not affect actual outcome, as the electoral dynamics can be complex and are influenced by various factors. Kalera, do you understand? But we have more. Because the conflicting polls is where it gets interesting. Because the polls are conflicting, it becomes challenging to predict a definitive outcome based on the polls. However, I have analyzed both scenarios and have shown you what those outcomes are. Let me repeat. If the JLP is 4 points ahead, it is likely they would win about 38 of the seats. If the PNP is ahead by 3, they are winning 32 or 33, up to 35 of the seats. Those polls, given conflicting outcomes, shows a tight race, with either party potentially winning a slim majority. But the actual results depend on various factors, such as voter turnout, swing voters, how the parties campaign, and external factors influencing voter sentiments. The most likely outcome and the worst, looking at both polls, if they were correct, though they are conflicting, the results of the election would be, at worst for the Labour Party, 35. 35. And the best those poll results do for the PNP is 28. What I have done is to extrapolate the figures, give you the likely outcomes, and give you the best results for both parties. But those polls, Caleria, are old polls. We have new information. We have new information. And the new information comes from the Politics Plus team. And what the Politics Plus team has done It has looked at the polls, looked at the last local government elections, looked at the various factors in the country, look at the history of the seats, the traditions of the seats, the performance of the members of parliament, the popularity of the parties, the popularity of the party leader. And we are projecting that the Labour Party has a 40-seat advantage. Well, not advantage, but are likely to come away with at least 40 of the 63 seats. Okay? That is the projection as of Thursday. We have only found 15 seats in the country where the PNP are winning without doubt. We have found 25 that the JLP cannot lose. 25 that the JLP cannot lose. We have only found 15. Well, yeah, 15. All right. Now, the research continues, and I'm sure that as we go farther in the campaign, we can give you further information. All right, my sister. I hope that that clears it up for you. I want to move on. What is? Hello? 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 I want to move on now to crowds, because there's a fixation on crowds and crowd sizes. You know, women, sometimes some women are fixated about sizes, but size no matter. What is it that I've just, what I just said here? What I just said here. Oh boy. Do you agree with me, Kerry? Do you agree with me? All this fixation about size, crowd size, eh? Does size matter? Well, I tell you. Leave that alone. All this fixation about size, crowd size. I'm going to talk to you now about crowd sizes. Does the size of the crowd matters? All right, let's get there. Exhale, why haven't you accepted my request? Why haven't you
can find it right here.
accepted my request? I don't understand. Hello?
Okay.
Hello? Yeah, sizes. There's this fixation, especially in this election, about sizes. Does size matter? Huh? I'm going to answer the question about size. I'm not talking about men. I'm not talking about that size. Not that size I'm talking, no. All right, so especially in this election, there is this fixation on crowd sizes. And you know, in Jamaica, it's an interesting phenomenon. This whole matter of size, crowd size. Let's break it down. Let's break down the size of the crowd and see why is this fixation. I remember last week Sunday, the People's National Party sent, I don't know if it's the People's National Party that did it, but there were people in Old Harbour watching out the size of the crowd. Watching out the size of the crowd. A fixation on crowd sizes. Now, crowds can demonstrate popular support for a party or a candidate. You know, nomination day, you have these massive crowd that, you know, candidates wants to pull out massive crowd. Large crowds can create a sense of momentum and energy around the campaign. Yes? Fixation on crowd, large crowd, sense of momentum. It's psychological. Watch the crowd. Watch the crowd. Crowds can provide a visible representation of a party's grassroots support. So the crowd does. It gives you a visible representation of the grassroots, because it's normally the people from the grassroots that shows up at these meetings. And so crowd boosts the morale and enthusiasm among party supporters. When they meet, it's festive. Large crowd can attract media attention. When the crowd is large, the media sees it and they report on it. Massive crowd gathered at the National Arena for Labour Party's 81st conference. Yeah? Massive crowd gather. Yes? And on the other hand, the media may report lukewarm support as Labour Party gather for 81st conference. Lukewarm support. Yeah? And the reporter may write something like this: a sprinkling of supporters turned up at the National Arena on Sunday for the Jamaica Labour Party's 81st National Conference. Right? So thin was the crowd that, you know, party supporters looked dejected. And, you know, they hyperbole. They write all of these things. So parties wanting to get media attention boss people in. They do that because of the positive spin-offs from the crowd size. Does size matter? No, I'm not talking about that size. Crowd size I'm talking about. So there's a buzz around the campaign. Journalists like Cliff Hughes, massive support. You know how he can be sensational. Bumper crowd. Give me some adjectives, Jamaica girl. Give me some adjectives to describe large crowds. Yeah. Massive, bumper. You know. Crowds can provide an opportunity for politicians to connect with constituencies and hear their concerns. You can imagine the Gleaner. If the Gleaner turns up at a JLP meeting and there's a sprinkling of supporters, that thick, yes, you like it thick? Thick crowd, yeah. Crowd we're talking about. Remember that. sprinkling of supporters, lukewarm, jubilant supporters, yes. But here are the negatives. Fascinating. Crowd side doesn't necessarily translate to votes or electoral. Scores of supporters. Yes, Showski. Scores of supporters turn up at the national arena. You know, and when the party sees that, they feel, yes, they capture the headlines. So crowds, you know, are an election outer headline grabber. Massive crowd. Yes, young Mullah. Multitude of supporters turned up. Yes, a sea of supporters. Yes, a sea. Yeah. Here's a favorite one. Labour Party river come down bank to bank. Yeah, Labour Party river come down, or PNP river come down bank to bank. That's the common one. Yeah. Crowd size don't win elections. Yeah. It doesn't necessarily translate into voter success. And so an overemphasis, JLP burst them river bank to bank. Yeah, an overemphasis on crowds can distract from policy issues and substantive debates. I think the PNP has fallen into that trap. The PNP is focusing on the crowd, not on the concerns of the people. They are overplaying this crowd thing. And what they should be concentrating on are the concerns of people. Crowds can be manipulated also. Yes? Or staged, which can undermine their legitimacy. So there are several negatives about crowds, because you can stage a crowd. Look at the Democrats, for example. Look at the crowds that Kamala Harris had at her conventions. And you know, they were laughing that Donald Trump's arenas were sparse. Crowds? Let me go ahead and let me go over this, because yes, it is important for us to be sensible, to reason this thing out. We said crowds can demonstrate popular support, yeah. Large crowds create a sense of momentum and energy around the campaign. Crowds provide visible representation of what's happening on the ground. Crowds boost morale, enthusiasm among party workers. Crowds attract media attention. They generate a buzz. They go viral. You know, you show the crowd. You don't need to show what the Prime Minister is saying, you know. You just need to show the crowd. And once they show the crowd, it carries a bandwagon effect. People say, yeah, you're winning. It provides this type of opportunity. However, there are negatives. And when you focus on the crowd, you take your eyes off the concerns of the people, because you think that you have it won when you probably don't. There are many people in Jamaica that will never turn up at a party rally. Most people watch it online, but they don't turn up. So you have to be careful that you don't get dragged by negatively by the crowd. Because crowd size does not necessarily translate into voter support. As a matter of fact, some of them that are in the crowd don't have a vote, can't vote, and are not going to vote. Some of them are there for the party, the festivity, and the freeness. They want a freeness. You know what a lot of the people don't understand? It's like funerals. I know a lady who loved going to funerals. It doesn't matter if she know whether the people them were dead or not. Once funeral a keep, she gone. Every Sunday, every Saturday, she gone. She just love going to funerals. Jamaicans love party. Comrades turn up at Labour Party meetings, and Labour Party supporters turn up at comrade meetings in green shirt, in orange shirt. There are people in Jamaica that have two color shirts, They have an orange shirt, they have a green shirt. And they go to the meetings. Do you know also that, well, I won't tell you one of the strategy that the parties use sometimes. But crowd don't win you elections. This overemphasis on crowd can distract you from substantive debates on policy. Focus on the concerns of the people, not so much on the crowd. Because you see the same people that shout Hosanna, the crowd that shout Hosanna, it was the same crowd that shouted crucifying. Watch the crowd. Focus on the concerns. Because crowds can be manipulated or staged, which undermines the legitimacy. And so you have to be careful to ensure that the crowd attendance is genuine and is not coerced or incentivized. Is the crowd coerced and is it incentivized? For example, if you have money, you can fill up any arena in Jamaica if you're prepared to pay. And therefore, when the bus comes to the community, if money are run, man will get on the bus. Does he have a vote? Will he vote? Is he a supporter of your party? You don't know that. If you really want to test the strength on the ground, ensure that the crowd is not coerced and is not incentivized. And I'm not saying that you mustn't provide some refreshments for people. But if we are to be truthful, money run to fill up these spaces. Envelopes come out, money come out, and some man said they're not getting on the bus until money drop. Tell me, say I lie, me I tell. So crowd side doesn't translate into electoral success. So you see this obnoxious, I call it obnoxious fixation, where people are talking about, look pan for me crowd, look pan for me crowd. Look, did you see the crowd? Well, you can coerce people. You can pay and fill a place. That don't show anything. Yeah? What you want is the generic, authentic crowd that are your supporters. And if it means that the place is half empty, it's just because media we're so sensational, so emotional. Yeah? That we And so the parties ought to avoid an over-reliance on crowd size as a measure of success. The popular 150,000 strong was wrong. And when Michael Manley saw that 150,000 estimated crowd gathered in Sam Sharp Square, he thought that the PNP was going to win the 1980 election. You know what the results were? Massive landslide for the Jamaica Labour Party. Concerns, not crowd. Focus on policy and substance rather than just spectacle. Crowd size is spectacle. It don't win you any election. It has its positive psychological impact. It's not substantive. Yes. Not substantive at all. So, you want your enthusiasm and your energy, the visibility vitals, because crowds provide valuable media exposure, what is called visibility vitals. I see Bridget talking about the 2011 crowd in Mandeville. You know, I understand that a lot of those people that went to the Mandeville meeting were comrades. My understanding is that the PNP bussed thousands of people down to Mandeville to give the Prime Minister at the time this impression, this enthusiastic impression that he had the support. When he didn't. Because the tide was against the Labour Party at the time. And Holness felt that the crowd that he saw in Mandeville was a sure win. Lost the election badly. Crowds demonstrate popular support for parties. They are momentum maker. Large crowds can create a sense of momentum. Yes. But as I said earlier, it's a complex thing. And you have to be careful. So let's just sum up this crowd fixation. And then we give you the conclusion. Then we're going to go to your calls. We're going to go to your calls. All right. The fixation on crowd is overplayed. We're overplaying it, especially the PNP. The People's National Party is overplaying this crowd fixation. And it suggests a lack of substance, a lack of positive prescriptions. Because although crowds demonstrate popular support for a party candidate and it provides a sense of momentum and energy around the campaign, and they provide a visible representation of grassroots support. They boost morale and enthusiasm. They attract media attention and they generate buzz. They provide opportunities for the politicians to mingle with the crowds. By the way, you see this mingling? A lot of it is for media. But that's another story. That's the background story. Yeah. But crowd doesn't necessarily translate into voter or electoral success. So an overemphasis on crowds can distract from policy issues and substantive debate. When you are focusing on the crowd, you have lost the concern. A party that focuses on crowd is not concerned about the policies. A party that focuses on crowd is losing the election. It is the policy that you want to focus on that will attract the crowd. Because crowds can be manipulated, crowds can be staged, and when that is done, it undermines their legitimacy. And so you have to ensure that the crowd is genuine, it is not coerced, it is not incentivized. because an over-reliance on crowd size is not a measure of success. What the parties should do is focus on policy, on substance, rather than just spectacle. Yes? Because crowds have to be managed too, The resources of the state must go into managing crowds. Because when you have an energized, enthusiastic audience, you can have trouble. But the parties do it because they want the visibility vital. They want the media exposure. They want the crowds to demonstrate the popular support of their party. And of course, they want to capture the momentum. And so, in the crowd war, what you have is a critique of the crowd claims, where there are questions about the legitimacy of crowd size and attendance. I hear one man telling me that the PNP import crowds, they bus people in. So there's a critique of the crowd, not a critique of the policy, it's a critique of the crowd. What a waste of time. Then there is the comparing and the contrasting, where the parties begin to compare whose size bigger, which size bigger. Yes? Comparing the size of the crowd. Who have the bigger crowd? Yes. Focusing less on policy than over crowd spectacle. We must have policy over pageantry. And then there is the alternative analysis, offering alternative perspective of crowd significance. Facts and figures highlighting factual discrepancies in crowd claim. So these points highlight the complexities surrounding crowds in Jamaican politics. And so by understanding the important positives, negatives, and potential pitfalls, we can better navigate the role of crowds in electoral politics. It's your time. You want to come up now? If you want to discuss that or anything else, the lines are open. Those were my thoughts, my views on the neighbor's note. Three minutes. I'm going to do this crowd thing again tomorrow, okay? For those of you who missed it, I'm going to do it again. All right, 22 minutes to 7 o'clock. right, so I have more notes to share. I have more notes. Let me see if I can go to one or two of my listeners. Bridget, good evening, Bridget.
Hey, never. Good evening. Long time. It's been a
Yes,
minute.
how are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
Uh-huh. How is the baby?
The baby's fine. I have her in my hand. That's why I
She's
can't
quiet.
join you regularly.
She's quiet today.
Huh?
She's quiet today.
Not really, but I'm trying.
All
So I
right,
said, let
great.
me join you for